It's a fine Monday on Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner. Joining me today, Kennedy, Dr. Nicole Saphier, Jackie DeAngelis, and Pete Hegseth is in the house. We began with the crisis at our southern border with Mexico about to get a lot worse. Title 42, the Trump-era policy restricting the number of asylum seekers for health reasons, COVID, is now set to expire. Just 2 days from now, so Wednesday, it will look worse, we're told to brace. Even Democrats like Texas Congressman Henry Cuellar are warning of a massive influx of people. The mayor of El Paso, also a Democrat, has already declared that city a state of emergency. And check out these stunning images from Texas Republican Congressman Tony Gonzalez. It's a processing center in that city, extremely overcrowded, 500 people packed into a pod there at one time that was only meant to hold 100. The whole place is supposed to hold only 1,000 total. There are 4,600 people there. And there's only one bathroom.
Whoa.
Okay, let's just settle there. Okay, we'll move forward because that's a lot. Border agents are also overwhelmed. And now they're bracing for what Texas Governor Abbott is calling total chaos.
If the courts do not intervene and put a halt to the removal of Title 42, it's going to be total chaos. Whether it's COVID or some other issue, when you have people coming across the globe without knowing at all what their health status is, that almost by definition is a public health risk. There's every reason to keep that in place.
I have no words.
There are no words. The word is humanitarian crisis, which, of course, we were saying they were leveling.
That was 6 months ago.
Yeah, they were leveling against the Trump administration for years when they were actually addressing the problem. We keep asking, where's the plan? I think the plan is there is no plan intentionally. This is what they have declared they wanted, all under the guise of rejecting policies that were actually working. And when you hear the El Paso mayor recently declared a state of emergency, he had wanted to, but the White House told him not to. Please don't call the cops, basically, is what the White House was saying, even though your house is under siege. But all an emergency does, and all their plans ever do, is more quickly process and facilitate the illegality. So they're not talking about emergency, how do we stop it? They're saying, how do we more quickly process the tens of thousands of people that could be crossing daily? I mean, this is we said invasion years ago. This is an invasion with no plan in sight to change it.
So it's interesting what you're talking about, though, in terms of the processing. Because what the government is prepared to do is throw money at this.
That's it.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. Remember when they were looking, Jackie, for volunteers from DHS and other places to volunteer to go to the border to help with the processing? What happened to those people?
I'm not sure what happened to them, but let's talk about the cost for a moment, because it's not only a humanitarian crisis, not only do we have illegal drugs coming across the border, not only do we have crime issues in this country that illegal migrants, some of them, are contributing to. Here in New York City, Eric Adams requested $1 billion from FEMA when there were 17,500 migrants per his count. That number has swelled to 30,000. I imagine other cities and states are going to be asking for federal funding, too. There is an extreme cost when these people come into the country to the taxpayers of the United States, who have to house them, they have to feed them, they have to put their children in school. And we essentially are taking this on at a time when we're going into 2023, and it is going to be a rough year. Americans are going to lose their jobs. Inflation has not come down enough. I just ask myself, I mean, I agree with you, Pete, that the solution here is that there is no solution. This is intentional. There is no plan. But we are bearing the burden of it. And President Biden said that he wanted to help the middle class. The middle class is going to be paying for this.
Yeah, they're getting crushed.
Yep.
Let's move to this, because you mentioned some of the problems with the drugs. Lieutenant Chris Oliveras from Texas Department of Public Safety and Sheriff Mark Daniels of Cochise County in Arizona last hour on the Faulkner Focus, talking about the situation on the ground.
One thing, Harris, that's very concerning to us as a state is the fact that when Title 42 is lifted, we're going to see a mass flow of migration that we've never seen before in years, historic years. There's going to be a hurricane of mass, illegal migration taking place. But when that takes place, the cartels, Mexican cartels, use that to their advantage.
We continue to see a slippery slope in our country as a result of the southwest border not being prioritized by this administration and President Biden. What I keep hearing is we don't have a problem, number one, per the administration. We know that's a false narrative. Number two is this, is as long as we keep ignoring it, it's only going to get worse in America. We have to prioritize our border.
Kennedy, a hurricane of people.
It really is. And, you know, at the beginning you said you had no words. That's all the administration has given us is words.
Amen to that.
You know, it's like Keisha Lance Bottoms is saying the president is doing the work. Well, what is the work? Show me the action, because that's what we need to see. We need to see action, because to Jackie's point, you can't go piecemeal to every municipality and every state and throw a little bit of money here and a little bit of money there. That is not immigration policy. And this is actually one of the few areas where hyperpartisanship works against everybody. You have to work in concert with different agencies and organizations and different parties to come up with even a minute fix. So we're not going to have comprehensive immigration reform, but you have to do something here, because you have people in Martha's Vineyard complaining that they have a couple of hundred migrants, and then they just assume that places like El Paso, the states of Texas, Arizona, California are just going to absorb everybody. But even Gavin Newsom is one of the governors complaining that the federal government isn't doing enough.
And that this is broken.
Yes.
Yeah, real quickly, I want to follow up on something that Jackie said with you, Kennedy, because it is the numbers game that this Democrat mayor here in New York City is playing right now with that $1 billion. Those 30,000 here, everybody thinks that, oh, that's from Republicans sitting, but we couldn't bust 30,000 people in this country effectively if we tried and not process them. But the federal government can do that. Citizens can't do that. States can't do that. The bulk of those 30 that he needs $1 billion for, Kennedy, came via the federal government. Why didn't they come with money attached to be able to take care of them?
Or more of a plan, which they don't have. They don't have enough ways to process people, and not everyone who comes to this country is granted asylum. Just because you walk in and say, you know, I'm seeking asylum from a place that was much worse than the United States, that doesn't mean that you are granted it. And also, you talk about the numbers. They're not honest with the number of asylees we'll take into the country compared to the number of people who are bum rushing the border.
So it was the White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, the only French I speak, I say that all the time, who said that the president is doing the work. We saw the 6-point plan. It's loosely an outline, loosely.
It seems like a lot of things that come out of the White House these days are a loose plan. And, you know, to what Kennedy was just saying, you have Governor Newsom coming out and saying, anyone who's undocumented, we're going to give you free health insurance, we're going to give you free housing.
How are they doing that?
And let's not forget about the 30 million Americans, legal Americans, who don't have health insurance, and the 500,000 Americans who are also homeless. So maybe we are not in the COVID emergency anymore, but we are still in a public health state of an emergency. And that is why Title 42 is crucial until we actually have comprehensive immigration plan. And the Republicans in the midterms, they were all about it. It is time for them to actually put their money where their mouth is, so they don't just continue the rhetoric that we keep seeing, because we are seeing swarms of undocumented immigrants coming across our southern border. There's a ripple effect in these small communities with drugs. We have overrun health systems. I mean, this is the public health emergency.
Talk to me from the doctor perspective, because you are such an expert in this, and we always talk about mental health as part of this. I asked Lieutenant Oliveros, where they've had some of those suicides down in the Del Rio section and in Texas, what can we do to help?
This is one of the biggest issues that no one is reporting on except for us here. You have a rise in suicide rates amongst the Border Patrol agents. I have friends who are from Eagle Pass. I have friends who are Border Patrol agents, physicians there. And none of this is being captured on the media, and it is devastating. We have to continue to elevate this so that Americans are seeing what is going on there. Yes, there are inhumane conditions of the migrants, but it's also inhumane what is happening to these border towns.
Yeah, what can we do? Let the agents do their job, which they're currently not allowed to do. This has nothing to do with asylum and migration. It's illegality and criminality. That's what it is. You can't just say, I like your country more, so I'm going to walk across your border and say, I'm going to be here now.
That's not what asylum is.
That's not what asylum is. There's none of this. They're using the asylum process to flood the country with illegals at this point. And we lose even the word game when we talk about mass migration. This is illegality, and the Democrats are happy to see it happen.
All right. I wish we had even more time to talk about this and answers.
Yeah.
We're going to need them.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.